Hey guys, thank you for checking out this episode. We'd love your support by heading to patreon.com/freshly grounded. It really does make a difference in helping us continue making this content. And if not, no stress. Enjoy. Hey guys, welcome to episode 181 of Freshly Grounded. This episode is with Ali Abdaal. I'm so excited about this episode because it's one that I've wanted for a while. And Ali is a YouTuber and a doctor. He studied at Cambridge University and he's now a junior doctor. But his YouTube channel is really, really inspiring. It's all about productivity. It's all about efficiency, books, and how he basically maximizes his time, especially with all that he has going on. Very, very inspiring. Go check out his YouTube channel. We're going to put the link in the bio if you haven't seen it. Also, it was more so, when you guys watch this episode, you'll see that I basically selfishly took this opportunity for it to kind of be like a consultation between me and Ali. And so it's very much so like... do you know what I love about it? I love the fact that we're very raw with you guys on the podcast, in that we're not putting on a show for the podcast. It's a genuine conversation that we would have had, whether it would be recorded or not. And I think that's what's great about podcasting, is that we can have kind of a window into general conversation, and hopefully you guys can feel part of the conversation as well. So it's a really cool episode with Ali Abdaal. Also, I have left social media. Well, I haven't left social media. I've deleted my Instagram app temporarily. As you guys may recall, I deleted my Instagram app when Zakaria was born for about 5 months. And I found so much benefit in it that I felt like I wanted to go through it again. And I explained why I left and what my kind of experiences were with it last time. And... if you're interested in watching that video as to why I left and all of my experiences with it, and if it's something that you think you might benefit from, I'm going to leave the link for that in the bio too. So guys, without any further ado, this is episode 181 of Freshly Grounded with Ali Abdaal. Enjoy.
And welcome to Freshly Grounded, the brand new podcast by best friends Faisu and Sam.
Huh?
I said welcome to Freshly Grounded,
No, after that bit.
the brand new podcast
And after that bit?
by best friends Faisu and Sam.
Really?
Hey Ali, thank you very much for joining me. I really, really appreciate it, especially on such short notice. Thank you so much.
No, thanks for having me. This is exciting.
I don't know. I'm assuming that you haven't kind of heard anything about kind of us before, but the journey is really interesting in trying to get in contact with you, because I think for years now I've been speaking about stuff like Stoicism and my interest in it, and kind of how I came across it. I think for me the journey was more so reading about Stoicism after I had read about religion, and kind of seeing how much of Stoicism is kind of like you can kind of see the similarities in two. And so after a few years of speaking about kind of The Obstacle is the Way being one of my favorite books, which I'm about to speak to you about because I have a bone to pick with you, but we'll go into that in a second. I had a few comments from people saying, hey, have you heard of Ali Abdaal? He's a productivity YouTuber, speaks about Stoicism so much. I would love to have him on. And so I threw you a DM, and I hadn't seen much content, and I threw you a DM, and I'm going to be honest here. And I'm very happy that you didn't probably see it or respond. Let me just adjust my audio. Because it was probably a really embarrassing email, in the sense that it was probably just like straight like, hey man, love your stuff, would love to have you on the podcast. And the problem with that is nobody's gonna ever see that, open that, and think, do you know what? I'm in love. And so a few months later, and in those months, having watched a lot of your content and really starting to understand you, understanding your sense of humor and stuff like that, I think that that growth is so important, to understand that you're the person that you're getting in touch with, especially when it's like a cold email or a cold DM. Not understanding them is like the worst thing you could do, is not understand them and then approach them. And so I don't know if you noticed, but in the email that I then sent you like months later, it was like very much so using the Tim Ferriss and then kind of the additions by Alex Bonayan's email technique, which is like
Nice.
a very kind of bullet pointed email technique.
Yeah, no. So I've got to be honest. So I didn't see that email, but my assistant did, and
Okay.
she said these guys seem legit because this is a good email, so we should do a podcast with them. And I was like,
Oh.
all right, let's do it. So
Oh, amazing. Yeah,
Nicely
so I pretty much I think it comes into kind of understanding the person that you're getting in touch with and stuff. And I ended it with something along the lines of if you can't reply, I understand that hashtag saving lives takes precedent.
Oh yes, no, I did see that email. I
But
remember now. Yeah, I was like, oh,
yeah.
that's a good touch.
But yeah, thank you so much for joining me. So we'll get straight into it because of the lack of time that we have. And getting straight into it means books. And the bone I have to pick with you is that you always talk about the books that you love, and I've not heard you speak about The Obstacle is the Way, which has to be in like my top 2 even of books. Have you read it and do you like it?
So I think I read The Obstacle is the Way after I'd already read William Irvine's Guide to the Good Life, and after I'd already read Happy by Derren Brown. So I discovered Obstacle is the Way quite late, and so it didn't feel like it was particularly novel to me at the time. But it's on my list of books to reread because we're doing this book club series on YouTube where we talk about like books and stuff. But yeah, I think when I read Guide to the Good Life, I was like, oh my God, where has this been my whole life? But when I read Obstacle is the Way, I was like, all right, Ryan, fair enough. And so I think a lot of it depends on when you discover a book. Like a lot of my tech friends who haven't read The 4 Hour Workweek wouldn't enjoy it right now because it was ahead of its time in 2007. But now, like, it's so passé, like everyone knows about passive income in theory. And so reading The 4 Hour Workweek now would have less of an impact unless it's like literally your first introduction to the thing. So yeah, I'm curious how did Obstacle is the Way sort of change you in any way?
I think it changed my life in so many ways. And I think you're right. The reason it impacted me was because it was the first book of that kind of nature that I had picked up. And you're right, because then after that, being kind of so into that book, I picked up Ego is the Enemy again by Ryan Holiday.
Nice.
And it just didn't resonate with me at all, man. And I saw a few people who I really value or I look up to highly in this kind of field who were speaking so highly of Ego is the Enemy, and I realized that perhaps they had read that before reading one of his other books because it was just so similar, and so I couldn't finish the book. And I think the way it impacted me, bro, is because I think as a person, I was speaking about this on the last episode, the biggest asset that a person can have is self awareness and understanding what your weaknesses are. And I think that's something that we all kind of slack in a bit, is understanding where we fall short, perhaps because we don't want to be honest with ourselves. And so knowing that I probably fall short in patience, probably fall short in having what in Arabic they call sabrun jamil, which is like a beautiful patience. So it's like patience upon hardship that like is where your face can't, if you look at your face, you can't tell that you're going through a hardship. And that's what kind of Stoicism is all about. And so that's why it resonated with me, because when I go through hardship, I'm the type of person who everybody has to know that I'm struggling. Oh, I'm in pain. I've stubbed my toe. Everyone has to know. And so I think that's why it resonated with me so much. It taught me how to kind of have that beautiful patience. And then you're right, man. Like I listened to Ego is the Enemy after that, and it didn't really resonate. And so I kind of went off into a whole different kind of way. And I think after that, the book that probably impacted me the most next would have been Atomic Habits. Or no, the 4 Hour Workweek is an obvious one, but yeah. So I'd say that 4 Hour Workweek, Atomic Habits. But have you read? And I do want to get off the topic of books, but I'm really intrigued if you read this book. Have you read The Ride of a Lifetime by Bob Iger?
No, I haven't. I've heard very good things about it.
You have to.
Oh, okay, right. Do I want to read it or do I want to audible it?
I only Audible because of like how I try and use my time, because I just don't find that I have time to sit and like open a book.
Fine.
So
all right, I'm buying it right now. Ride of a Lifetime.
Do you want me to tell you what it's about first?
No, I know what it's about.
Okay, fine.
All right, done. But please do tell me what it's about. It'll benefit the audience who might not have heard of it.
Yeah, so Robert Iger is obviously the now ex-CEO of Disney. And my theory is that because in his book he mentions that he's going to retire in a few years from now, and his book was only released I think very recently. So my theory is that because he has Disney parks in China, he found out about COVID and realized that what it's about to do and decided to resign like weeks before coronavirus hit the West. But as of a few weeks prior to a few weeks ago, he was CEO of Disney, and it's all about leadership and how, for example, to speak to creatives when you're letting them down or firing them because they're very attached to their work, all the way to like his relationship with Steve Jobs and how it was kind of a bit kind of shaky at first, and then he ended up being like the one guy who Steve Jobs told first about his cancer, and they went for a walk and stuff like that. So Yeah, really interesting, just like life lessons. I think different people resonate with different types of books, and this is like a very like life lesson-y kind of book.
Sick. That's right up my street. I will start listening to it right now
Oh, I'm
after this
glad.
podcast.
I'm glad. Hey guys, just a quick interruption of the podcast here to let you guys know about Audible. If you are interested in any of the books that we just spoke about in the episode, and you want to try Audible, which is audiobooks, basically that you can listen to in the car, when you're driving, on your journeys, or just at home while you're cleaning, check out Audible by clicking the link in the bio, and if you click the link in the bio, you get a free audiobook when you sign up, and Audible will give Freshly Grounded a little kickback. So please do check that out, inshallah, and maybe get one of the books that we spoke about in this episode. All right, guys, let's get back into it. What I've done is I've actually written some notes on some stuff that I wanted to ask you, which I don't normally do. We've done 180 episodes, and none of them have been scripted.
180. Damn,
Yeah.
that's a lot.
None of them have been scripted, but I know that I don't have too long for you of your time.
How long has your podcast been going on for?
4 years now. The beginning of 2017 we started, end of 2016, I think.
That's pretty ahead of the curve in terms of podcasts. It's only really, it feels like it was more recently that everyone has started a podcast.
Yeah, I think it was huge in America at the time that I had started it. I actually started so my name's Faisal, and so I started a podcast called The Next Phase from the bedroom in my mum's house that I was living in, and it didn't really kick off. It was like trying to be like Joe Rogan-esque conversations with people, relaxed, but it just didn't. I was shooting on my GoPro with I used £700 of my wedding fund to fund the equipment. But it's kind of turned into what it's turned into now. So,
like this setup setup that you've got now looks like super professional. Have you got like a studio, or is this like a corner of your bedroom, or what?
No. So we have a studio now. So now it's kind of a thing a bit more. It's a bit more like kind of somewhat of a business, a small business, but we do live events and stuff like that, and we're trying to, I suppose, be like. So I think there's like a really, if I was to explain it, there's like a really bad grey cloud hovering over people who look like me, which is like brown and bearded, and people who probably take their religion quite like seriously, and I would probably categorize myself in all of those, but that doesn't mean that I'm not into tech, into lifestyle change, growth, and all of these kind of things that generally we as people are in. I'm born and brought up in London, so I consider myself British and a Londoner, and so I just kind of, the aim was to show people that you can look like me and stuff like that, but still be trying to achieve, I suppose, like all of these secular achievements.
Okay,
so
that's
that was kind of the idea.
I'm just checking out your website. It looks very pro.
Oh no, the website's awful. I don't. It's like a WordPress template that I don't look at that.
No, mate, but still, it's pretty good. It's a nice logo as well.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you. Ali, let's talk less about me because this is about you. So I have a few questions, man. Or some I'm really, really intrigued about. One of them is about social media. So I recently took a break from social media when my son was born about 6 months ago. Oh. And I took like a 5-month break.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And I saw so much value in taking a break that now 6 months later, I've decided to have like a second version of it. And so as of like 2 days ago, I decided to again take a break from my Instagram page. Have you ever done that or thought about doing that, considering you have such kind of like a high level of such a high following and stuff? Have you ever considered just escaping, leaving the room for a second?
No, I haven't really. I don't know what would prompt a person to get to that point. So like, why did you decide to do it? And like, why was it helpful for you? Because I know like so many people do this whole I'm going off social media to realign my chakras thing, but I've never really understood why. Like, what's the point, as it were?
I'll bounce a question back to you, and I will answer that. But I'll bounce a question back to you, and I'll say, if you haven't, that means that you probably have a really good balance of your life, right? Like of your emotions, of your life, and being that you're also a doctor, you're also pretty much full-time content creator at the same time. How are you able to then get that balance then, that you're not trying to just kind of remove things because social media is like a room where you just have thousands of people coming at you at all times, and a person who isn't balanced can't always handle that. And so how do you achieve that balance where you don't make that decision, or you don't consider that?
I don't know. I think maybe my position on this is different to kind of normal people, in that like my business is social media. And so when you say kind of getting off social media, like social media to me doesn't, like, it's a kind of a meaningless word, because for me, social media is just media. It is the internet. It is like everything online. So taking a break from social media, what does that mean? Does that mean I won't release YouTube videos? Probably not. Does it mean I won't go on Twitter? I've only recently started to go on Twitter. Instagram, it's just kind of fun posting pictures on Instagram. So like, I feel like the way that I use social media is I suppose I recognize that it's very much a one-to-many type relationship, in that I'll get kind of about 50 DMs a day, hashtag flex. And I won't reply to any of them because they just appear in the requests tab, and I won't even see them unless I'm like sitting on the toilet or something and I actively want to waste time. So I'll just kind of browse through the request and be like, oh, that person's cool. I know this person. Let me like accept their request and reply to it. But otherwise, these sort of like thousands of Instagram DMs just are not even seen. So it's like that side of social media where it's sort of people are coming in at you from all directions. I think the platforms do a pretty good job of just kind of hiding it away. Equally for YouTube comments, I don't spend most of my day reading comments, but every now and then when I actively want to procrastinate, I'll open the YouTube app, be like, oh, let's reply to a few comments. And even then, I kind of make it a point that I will read every single comment, and I always give it a little thumbs up so I can see for myself that I've read the comment, and I just kind of make sure I'm up to date on the comments. But all that stuff just sort of happens in the little bits of time that we all have here and there, like 2 minutes in the toilet because I'm gonna sit down to take a wee and get my phone out, and then comment, Instagram DM request done. Like, I don't know what I can't imagine getting to a point where I feel like, oh my God, I need to take a break from Twitter or things like that.
I think for me, the angle it came from is, so I agree with you on those points, but I think the angle it came from is, am I opening my phone up where in times where I shouldn't be, and finding myself scrolling for 20 minutes at a time and not being like fully present in situations where I can, for example, spend time with my son, spend time with my family. And when I start seeing those build up, I see the problem being the scrolling. And if I can't control it, to remove it, which is a very extreme viewpoint to have, but I suppose for my personality, I think that I have to police myself in such extreme ways. I mentioned a few times before that I have a very addictive personality, and I'm quite content with the fact that right now my only addiction is coffee, and if that's my only addiction, I'm happy to have that, because
that's a pretty good advice to have.
Right. So I suppose it must mean that you don't have addictive personality, or that you're great at controlling yourself. You don't spend out like half an hour at a time scrolling. Is that because you just don't have the time to it, or do you just mentally police yourself?
Oh no, I do spend half an hour at a time scrolling. But while I'm doing it, I fully recognize that this is what I want to be doing right now.
Fine.
If I have a deadline to work to or something, then sure, I won't scroll, because at that point, the punishment of not meeting that deadline would be too great. Like,
But that's the control, though. How do you get that control? How do you tell yourself that at that time?
I think so. Tim Urban from Wait But Why has a very good TED talk about this. I don't know if you've come across it. It's called Inside the Mind of a Master Procrastinator. And the analogy that he uses is that we have within our brains, we have kind of the rational actor that's sort of being rational and doing the things it wants to do. Then we have the instant gratification monkey that is trying to sort of deviate us off course and kind of take the wheels of the ship and start doing instant gratification-y things like scrolling through Instagram for a long time. But then very occasionally we have the panic monster, and the panic monster comes along when we have a deadline. So like all of us with that panic monster, like if tomorrow you had to, I don't know, do something where there was a genuine deadline to it, I'm sure you wouldn't waste time scrolling Instagram, because your instant gratification monkey is afraid of the panic monster. And so for me, if I have a genuine deadline, then panic monster comes out and it's fine. But I think for me, I'm at the point now where I don't really have hard deadlines, and this is partly why with me and my team we try planning out our videos sort of enough in advance that on any given day I don't have anything that I absolutely have to do. Like today, I've got a day off work. I'm off tomorrow and the day after as well, just for annual leave. And I've set this sort of soft deadline for myself that I want to film these 5 videos today. So I've got the setup ready overnight. But if I do end up scrolling for half an hour today, then it's no big deal. I know I've got tomorrow and the day after. If it got to like Sunday and we had to release a video on Tuesday and I had work on Monday, then it would be a case of, okay, I need to control myself. I need to not scroll Instagram. But I'm quite happy with being a waste man occasionally, because in general, I get stuff done.
Well, the fact that you want to achieve so high, like film 5 videos in a day, that's quite a big task. Would you say that kind of achieving high results is something that's addictive or becomes habitual. Because if we look at kind of your history of going to Cambridge, graduating as a doctor, and putting education at the forefront of what you do, and now even with your YouTube videos, you're saying you're shooting 5 in a day, which is crazy for someone like myself. Is it because once you hit a target, you hit a high target, and no doubt that getting into Cambridge, let alone graduating from there as a doctor, is something that a lot of people want to be able to do. Once you've done it, you mentioned in the Q&A once before that you don't see it as a huge kind of a big thing, because those around you have done the same thing. My question is because you seem to be constantly achieving high results, is that what kind of makes you carry on to achieve high results, where shooting one YouTube video in a day is just almost like a failure for you?
I probably wouldn't use the term failure. I think the way that I achieve high results is by not really thinking of them as high results. Firstly, like when it comes to filming videos, as you know, I guess you've got a studio now, but when you were kind of, like me and kind of working out of a bedroom or a living room,
I'm trying to be like you, Ali.
It takes bloody ages to set up all the equipment. And so it would be incredibly inefficient to set it all up, film a video, wrap it all down again, and my housemate gets annoyed when the camera gear's out. She's like, Ali, why is the camera gear out? Why is there a big ass light in the living room? And I'm like, look, man, I'm filming videos. Don't you get it? I'm a big deal on the internet. And so it's a lot more efficient for me, like in the long run, to film 5 videos in a day than to film 1 video in a day. And I guess another part of it is that I just don't really think of it as being that hard. Like, I've literally got the whole day. We're going to finish this podcast, at some point this morning. I've got like 12 hours of the day left. Filming 5 videos in 12 hours is actually very, very doable. It only takes half an hour to an hour to actually film a video. So I'm actually wasting a lot of time today by only filming 5 videos. And so that's kind of how I see it. So I'll have these 5 videos on my list. But what I do is I tend to overpromise and underdeliver to myself. It's like yesterday, I intended to write a script for 4 videos and shoot 2 of them, and I shot 1 and wrote 1. But I was like, it's fine. So often I'll do this thing where I'm like, right, I'm gonna do 10 videos today, and then it just doesn't get done.
Wow, and you still end up with a fairly high result. I should have probably asked you this at the beginning, but for those who are listening who perhaps haven't come across your kind of story, I think it probably should have. What I should have done is asked you kind of for a quick roundup of everything, because I know that you mentioned that you were you born in Pakistan?
Yeah, born in Karachi.
Born in Karachi, and then you moved to Africa, and then you came over here. Can you just kind of go over that story for us, just so we can understand, and then perhaps lead it all the way up to where you are now?
Yes, sure. So I was born in Karachi, Pakistan, where I lived for the first 2 years of my life. I'm now 26, so years 0 to 2, where I'm born in Pakistan. Then my mum moved us to southern Africa, a country called Lesotho, which is landlocked by South Africa. So we were there for like 5-6 years. Then lived in Pakistan again for a year while my mum moved to the UK to take her medical exams in the PLAB. Shout out all the IMGs out there. And then we moved to the UK in 2003. Started off in Wiltshire in this sort of like predominantly white kind of primary school. Moved to Southend-on-Sea, Essex for the grammar schools for secondary school. And then I went to Cambridge for medicine. So I was there for the last 6 years. And I've continued on in Cambridge being a doctor here. So this is my 8th year in Cambridge. So I'm kind of getting a bit bored of it now. So that is sort of the journey from day 0 to day 26.
Wow, that really is in a nutshell. Okay, so, with regard, if we go back to kind of social media and YouTube and stuff like that, you have 760,000 subscribers on YouTube, and a large following on both kind of Skillshare and Instagram and stuff like that. Although we wouldn't count Skillshare as a social media, I guess. A lot of creators and a lot of people generally, even if we're not talking about social media, they struggle with people commenting on their life, and they struggle with people commenting about them. And we all know kind of the common sentiment that is that, you might get 100 positive messages and you get 1 bad one and you focus on the bad. And you're going to be no different in that you're a creator. And so inevitably you're going to get stuff like that. And in one of your Q&As, I think maybe a year or 2 ago, you mentioned something about, so I think someone was saying that something about perhaps you. They were saying something about you, and then you were making kind of a joke about it and accepting it, and kind of it didn't seem to affect you, right? for so many people it affects us. For so many people, seeing a bad comment is tough to deal with. How have you? First of all, have you ever, when you first started and you start kind of allowing people to comment in your life, was it affecting you? And then secondly, how have you managed to? What's the journey of being able to kind of sail through that and get to a point now where you can just move on and it doesn't affect you as much?
Yeah, so I think there's a few different bits of that. The first one is the whole Stoicism thing, which you're into. This idea that there are only essentially two categories of things. There are the things that are within our control, and there are the things that are outside of our control. And what someone thinks of me is very much outside of my control. All I can do is do the stuff that I think is reasonable and put out the best work that I can. And if someone looks at it and thinks, "Oh my God, this guy's an absolute, why is he posting this thing on Instagram? Like, no one cares about motivation, mate." And okay, fine, that's their opinion. There's literally nothing I can do about that. So that's one part of it. I think another part of it is recognizing that I suppose it depends what you mean by like a bad comment. Because like for example, if it's a comment like "Bro, you've got a touch of arrogance about you," I mean, like, yeah, fair enough, fair play, that's kind of true. I got lots of comments about a video I did recently about the Microsoft Surface, where I hadn't really researched it, and I was doing an impressions video, and people were like, "Bro, obviously, it's clear that you have no idea what you're talking about. Stick to Apple products." So I was like, okay, yeah, fair enough, that's fine. So stuff that has an element of truth to it, it's like, yeah, fair enough. Someone commented, mate, how can you be on camera with such a big nose? I was like, okay, yeah, fair enough. That's something I've been insecure about for years.
Even if you feel like those sentiments are true, like someone said, "Oh, you have a touch of arrogance about you," and all of these things, and still, if someone's saying something negative about you, how are you able to just go, "Yeah, fair enough," and then move on? Where does that come from? Is it your upbringing? Is there something that's like toughened you and giving you thick skin?
I think
or
in
you
general,
can't
I'm
pinpoint
just,
it, perhaps.
Yeah, I feel like in general, just I'm kind of with the whole Stoicism thing. Like, I tend not to experience negative emotions particularly. And yeah, I think if it's a mean comment, either it has absolutely no truth to it at all, in which case, I mean, it'll bounce right off me, or it has some shred of truth to it, in which case I can think, okay, yeah, I see why you would think that. Fair enough. Is this something that I can change? Maybe I want to go to South Korea and get a nose job. Okay. Is it something that I want to change? And so I think I'm sure you're familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk, but some of the people in the audience might not be. He's like this big content creator. He comes across as very sort of loud and obnoxious the first few times you watch his stuff, and then you kind of look past that and think, damn, this guy's a genius. And what he says is that when it comes to dealing with negative comments, it's really just about having empathy with the commenter. It's like, someone has watched 30 seconds of your stuff and has formed a snap judgment, which is fine. There's nothing you can do about it. But also, they must be in such a bad place that they're actively writing a comment in order to bring you down. And you can just kind of feel empathy and be like, yeah, okay, I understand. I have love towards my fellow man. It's all good. And in a way, yeah, just kind of empathizing with the plight of the commenters. So that's kind of how I view bad comments. There was one instance though, like a few days ago, my brother and I released a podcast episode where we talked about the Black Lives Matter movement and about racism and anti-racism and things like that. And in kind of the first half, I was expressing a sentiment that I'd been watching a few videos on YouTube from right-wing commentators, and I was annoyed at how reasonable they seemed. And I was like, oh, they're bringing out all these stats that seem to show that police brutality is actually massively overhyped, or that, these various stats, which I didn't have a response for because I like to have like an evidence-based response to things to hold views. And I kind of talked about that and the difficulty with that. And he messaged me afterwards after the podcast got released. And apparently we got a load of hate mail from people thinking that I was some kind of agent of the alt-right. And I sort of expected that to an extent, but I haven't yet read those emails. And when he messaged me that, Ali, have you seen your hate mail? I had that, that feeling in my stomach. I was like, oh, crap.
Is that anxiety?
And
That's
I don't usually
feeling.
get that. I can count on one hand the number of times I've seen that. And I sort of
Really?
knew it would happen. So what I want to do as a way of kind of buffering myself against that sort of stuff is to kind of, for the first time, to read those emails like live on the podcast, just to see, just to sort of examine the reactions that it brings within me and whether I would agree with them and whether I'd be like, okay, yeah, either I need to learn from this or I need to develop a thick skin to not care about it. And I think those are the two choices. We can either choose to change something, or we can choose to ignore it. But if we choose to ignore it, we need to thicken our skin and thicken our resolve to not let it affect us emotionally.
I appreciate that, man. I think that's very insightful, especially for someone who I think I would count myself as one of those people who doesn't have thick skin, and I often see it as a big disadvantage when I'm trying to move forward with things. And then I have to kind of, I suppose, add barriers that other people who do have thick skin don't need to add, just in order to kind of bubble wrap myself to some extent and make sure I can carry on moving. Like, if I have a disagreement or an argument with someone in a family, I'm going to struggle at work that day. I'm not going to be able to concentrate on my work, and disagreements and arguments happen. And I think you have to learn to be a person who can put that to a side, go to work for your 8 hours, get your stuff done, don't let it distract you, and then kind of go back to it. So that's kind of really motivating and helpful. Again, like I said, I'm very conscious of your time. I had it till 10. Do you mind if
I've got time.
Sure?
I actually don't have anything at 10 o'clock.
Can you give me a hard cut-off? 10:15?
Yeah, 10:15, 10:30. I'm easy. I'm quite enjoying this.
All
this is
right.
good stuff.
That makes me a bit more relaxed then in that case. I appreciate that. I have to ask, how's things going in the hospitals right now with the current climate?
So I feel like a bit of a fraud, kind of, because I'm doing obstetrics and gynecology, and I'm in a tiny hospital in the middle of nowhere. So that it's very well insulated from what's going on with the whole COVID situation. But equally, like my housemate and other friends of mine, they're working on the COVID wards. They're seeing people dying every day. They're having to have those difficult conversations with family members over the phone, explaining that their relative's dying. So I don't really experience it myself personally. I just kind of chill and see women with early pregnancy bleeding. But I hear things are pretty bad overall. Have
you had to deliver a baby?
I assist in C-sections. But otherwise, it tends to be more the senior midwives and the senior doctors that do the actual deliveries, just because it's such a high risk thing. They don't want to get a junior doctor like me with their hands anywhere near it.
Okay. Oh no, that's super interesting as well.
But yeah, if there's a C-section, then I suit up in our space suit and the PPE and all that stuff, and I would hold the retractor and sort of, apply pressure to the top of the uterus when the baby's coming out, and then sort of help suture things back together and stuff. So yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, you come across as a person who likes to get stuck in and doesn't shy away from kind of problems or kind of like attacking a problem kind of head on. Would that be a reasonable statement to make?
Yeah, I guess so. I've never really thought about it that way, but I suppose. I think if it's a problem, then it's either a problem worth solving or not worth solving. And if it's worth solving, then let's solve it. And if it's not, then just forget about it. Again, going back to the Stoicism, obstacle is the way, ego is the enemy, all that stuff.
A lot of these kind of authors look at problems as kind of in a reverse way, right? They try and find. A lot of us kind of deal with problems very reactively, and a lot of these authors say, well, why don't we actually go to the problem, try and find a problem, and be solution orientated, so we can kind of benefit kind of society at mass. Have you had any experiences in your kind of work, whether that's as a doctor or probably more appropriately for your kind of content creation, where you've perhaps been stuck on an idea for a video or something and gone, okay, let me have a look at the kind of people that follow me, what would be like a generic problem for them, and show them my solution rather than kind of logging your own experiences?
Yeah, so I think in the early days, I was very much just talking about my own experiences. Again, following Gary Vaynerchuk's advice of document, don't create. The idea is that if you want to become a creator, it's actually really hard to create something from scratch, like to create, I don't know, a comedy skit. It's really, really, really hard. But if you're just documenting, and that's most of what I do, it's like, these are the apps on my phone. If you go on, anyone will kind of talk ad nauseum about the apps on their phone because they know so much about it. This is how I take notes at university. This is what I've learned from this book by Ryan Holiday. It's all documentation rather than creation. And so I think at the start, my theory on this was, I just want to document the things I'm doing in the hope that someone else might find them useful. I think as the channel has grown and as I've started to look more into things like, optimizing performance and target audiences and value propositions and stuff, which is what you start looking at if you want to sort of really grow on YouTube. Now I've started thinking more of, okay, this is what I'm doing, but what is my ideal target audience? Like, what is who is the one person sort of, and I have in my head this sort of avatar, who is this one person that I'm targeting with this video? And therefore, how do I figure out what their story is and what they need to know? And then I can apply kind of my lens to it. So I guess at the start it starts off kind of selfish, just kind of sharing whatever, which I think is fine because you want to reduce the barrier to entry. There's enough friction in putting yourself out there online and making videos anyway that you don't want to increase it more by thinking, okay, now I need to make the perfect video targeted for someone who's not me. But I think over time, as you become more used to that, you can start tailoring things more to the viewer rather than to the creator, if that makes sense.
Do you think there's a space though for somebody who can just share their experiences or document their journey, but then reach that high level? And the answer is yes, because there's all of these lifestyle bloggers, right? But I think the difference between a lifestyle blogger and what I'm talking about is that lifestyle bloggers, their thing is that they're documenting their life, and perhaps I'm not going to say that there's no substance to it, but perhaps they don't specialize to a niche, right? Like your niche, I would say, is productivity, and I think many people would say that. And so if I go to Ali Abdaal's channel, I'm certain that the content that I'm gonna see is gonna in some way or another meet that niche. Whereas I'm saying, is there space for someone who has kind of that kind of level of thinking, but then wants to document in many different aspects? And here's why I ask. I'm asking very selfishly. I have a personal YouTube channel. It's been running for about 5 years. It's never really cracked the bridge of like 27,000 subscribers. It grew very fast from 0 to 20, and then like has stayed for like 3 years on 20 to 30. And I've always been very stubborn with, I don't want to specialize. I just want to document what I think, what I'm strong on at that time. So if you go to my channel, you'll see some vlogs. You'll see yesterday I uploaded how I made the best and fudgiest chocolate chip brownies. The day before, I made this video about leaving social media, which I think was probably one of the kind of higher quality videos that's perhaps more like Matt Diavella, kind of Thomas Frank-esque videos. But then when you look at that, you think, well, who is the person that would want to sometimes see a vlog, sometimes see a Matt Diavella style video and stuff? But I'm being stubborn to it and saying perhaps someone wants to follow this like London born and raised bearded Muslim who like is trying to marry like tech and his love for like Stoicism with his love for his faith, where that perhaps doesn't exist, right? So that's my question to you as an expert in content creation. Give me advice, please.
Okay, I've got a few pieces of advice for you. So the first one is that I think you want to... So how often are you uploading videos?
I've over the past 4 or 5 years, I've been so inconsistent. Sometimes it's been like I've had times where I've like done like even daily uploads, and there are times where I haven't uploaded for a few months. But at this moment, I'm probably uploading like a couple times a week right now.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I think if you're uploading any less than once a week, then everything goes out the window. Like you have no right to expect any growth at all, unless you're sort of doing the monthly Sam Calder videos or the monthly Kurzgesagt videos or whatever. You know, like that level of production value. So kind of at a minimum once a week. I think the phrase that I think I heard early on is that there's like 3 different types of content on YouTube. There's either entertainment or education or in a way inspiration. But like I broadly split it up into entertainment and education. So what you want to ask yourself is, are you an entertainment channel or are you an education channel predominantly? So I guess for you it would be more education than entertainment. Like it's not like you're doing comedy skits and
yeah, okay.
And so when we land on the education thing, the next thing is, okay, how do I give people a very tangible value in what they're watching from me? And then over time, people will then start to care about you as a person, and then you can kind of branch out into just doing the stuff that you're interested in. There's a very good online course thingy called 30 Days to a Better YouTube Channel by a company called Video Creators. That's one that I did a few months ago, and it really, really helped in terms of like every day they give you an exercise to do for your channel. Like the first couple of days are like nailing down your target audience, your value proposition, like what are you actually trying to do with this channel? And even just thinking about that and forcing yourself to think about it every day for 30 days, it's just like super, super helpful in sort of figuring out where you want to go with it. So that would be my advice, kind of follow the stuff from Video Creators. And I think actually, so I would probably disagree with a lot of the advice out there, which says that you should have a clear value thing. So like, you know, when someone goes on Matt Diavella's channel, they kind of know they're getting something about minimalism. But actually now they're not just getting minimalism stuff. They're getting kind of personal finance stuff. They're getting personal development stuff. They're getting the other stuff that he's into. He did a video about his engagement and that got like 1 million views and stuff. So I think there is definitely scope to do lots of different things. And that's kind of what I worry about on my channel. I worry that, oh, this random video about fantasy fiction books. Does anyone care? But like, it's fine. Like I think the great thing about having a personal YouTube channel is that it is a personal thing. There's another creator called Peter McKinnon, who I'm sure you're familiar with, given your camera setup. He made a video recently talking about how he's like a huge YouTuber, like 5 million subscribers. He sort of typecast himself into making photo and video tutorials. But then he would make videos about what's in my bag and what's in my wallet. And he would get comments from people being like, bro, stick to, when's the next After Effects tutorial coming along? I don't care what's in your wallet. And what he was saying is that that's really hard as a creator, because you've got things that you want to create, and then you've got this sort of thing of pandering to the audience. And you want to do a bit of both, ideally. Like, you don't want to completely forget the audience, but you also don't want to kind of forget your own thing. And so for me, what I try to do, and this is a very kind of long-winded answer, what I try to do is I like to have a thread that tries to tie everything together. So these days, the thread is healthier, happier, more productive lives, and exploring the strategies, principles, and tools that can help us live happier, healthier, more productive lives.
You said that in a very Ali Abdaal voice.
That's my camera voice. And that's what I came up with after doing 30 Days to a Better YouTube channel. And then I was like, okay, everything I want to do can loosely have that thread to it. And so that, am I going to do a gaming video? Probably not. But if I sort of position it as I think video games are unproductive, but I'm going to try playing PlayStation for 30 days and see what difference it makes to my life, which is a video I'm going to start today. Then that becomes part of that theme, and it's a gaming video. So I don't know if that makes sense. Just a kind of a few general thoughts on that point.
No, it makes a lot of sense, and I think it seems like the ideal solution. So you basically have like I'm almost visioning it like a line here, and as long you can go up and down, but as long as like you're like around that line, it makes sense, and you can become. I suppose what you're saying is you can become broader and further away from it the more you grow with your channel.
Yeah, sorry, my screen went blank for a minute there. No, I also think sort of like one potentially easy thing that you could do that I haven't seen is, so you've got on the Freshly Grounded podcast YouTube channel, you've got kind of the long interviews.
Yeah.
Have you got a place where you've got kind of snippets from each episode?
Yeah, so we recently started like this Freshly Grounded Clips channel, but there's not really many subscribers on it at the moment. So that's the Freshly Grounded YouTube channel. The channel that I was just talking about with regards to kind of my stuff was my personal channel, which is Facebook. Okay, fine. So because we have the Freshly Grounded YouTube channel, I wanted to keep that kind of consistent with the long form interviews. I do think we need the clips, but I think the clips also work really well for Instagram. So our Instagram page kind of recently, since shortening the clips, we went with a very kind of Gary V style loading bar when he was doing it anyway. He's not doing it anymore, but we went with that a few years back, and since then kind of we saw exponential growth in our Instagram page. But yeah, I think that with the Freshly Grounded, I think it's quite obvious what the theme is, and what the if you go to our YouTube channel, you're gonna see episodes of the podcast. And the problem was that I was kind of speaking to you about was my personal YouTube channel, which is if you just type in Faisal.
Yeah, and I'm having a look through it now.
It's more so kind of like a bit all over the place.
Yeah, there's some like live streams, there's some donut stuff, there's some day in the life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit all over the place, but
yeah, I think it really kind of depends on where you want to go with it. Do you want to? It sounds like, given that you and I are interested in a lot of the same things, that potentially you could move towards the sort of personal development, but with the religion thing and with the being a dad thing as like.
I think that's the thing that I want to. Yeah.
And if you're going personal development,
I do want people to feel. Go ahead.
But if you're going personal development, then easy and delicious homemade donuts. Like it's fine, but it needs to how to make quick and easy Pakistani savi. It doesn't quite fit with that particular thing unless you can figure out a way of. I mean, it's fine if you've got the odd baking video. I was going to say one area that I think has a lot of potential, and this is what I'm starting to do now, is where you get the clips from the podcast, but instead of just uploading them as clips, you do a little bit of chat before and after. And that's a format so I've been doing these like remote live streams with people that I admire over the internet, and we've got like 2 hours of footage from each one, So I've got my team to chop it up into clips. And let's say, it's Derek Sivers talking about how he feels about goals. That would be the basis for like a whole video where I can be like, okay, guys, let's talk about goals. This is something that I struggle with goals. And I had a live stream with Derek Sivers, and here's what he said. Clip, come back to me, easy. And this becomes a very easy way to just churn out content based on this, on these clips.
It's interesting you say that, because the video that is just before the brownies one that I uploaded about 2 days ago is called something like I detoxed from social media for 5 months. That was in exactly that format. So I broke down why I left my social media for 5 months, and it's all based off of this clip that I preview from the podcast. Ali, the question that just popped to my mind is, I don't know if you've seen the podcast episode of Joe Rogan's podcast episode of Kevin Hart that came out recently.
I don't think I have. I think I started listening to it, and I don't think I finished it.
Something that he mentioned resonates a lot with. I feel like I've learned something new about you in this episode, and that new thing that I feel like I've learned about you is that you're not shy to give away information that you've spent years gaining, right? So you've just given so much kind of advice and expertise from just growing a YouTube channel, which is odd because most people want to keep the information that they learn for some reason. And this is what Kevin Hart spoke about in his podcast with Joe Rogan. He basically said that everybody in the world seems to be like this. They get information and then it's like, my information, I want to keep it. And if you want it, you can ask for it, but I might give you a bit of it if you ask for it. But if you don't ask for it, you're not getting it at all. And he said, I want to be the guy who says, I've gained all of this information. I've come from Philadelphia, from like nothing to something. And I want to go to the schools, and I want to, instead of someone going to the schools now who's like, if he goes back to Philadelphia and he's speaking to the young black children about making it financially and how to organize your finances. He was with an organization who wanted to send like a hedge fund manager from some like big firm, and he said, this man is never going to relate to people. Send me. And I'm getting off track here, but the point that I'm trying to get at is that he basically said, I want to, all this information I've gained, I want to give it out, because I can't die with the information. When I die, the information is going to just die with me. You seem like you have a very similar mindset. Why are you so generous with your information? Why are you telling us all of these tips? Why are you giving more than we're asking for when you took so long to gain that information? Is it natural for you, or are you doing it on purpose?
So I think there's two elements to it. One is that I enjoy teaching. That's one of my kind of passions in life. And I'm not trying to say that I'm kind of teaching you here, but like I have a sort of a natural inclination to want to sort of explain stuff. I've got the preacher gene in me, so I love hearing the sound of my own voice and going off on one and pontificating about some random stuff on like Instagram or YouTube. So it's just kind of fun. I think the other part of it is that, being open with sharing is just the way to go in this day and age. Like, it's through it, as Gary Vaynerchuk said, it's about so sort of his analogy is the title of his book called a jab, 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 right hook, whereby a jab is you providing some piece of valuable content for free to someone, and a right hook is you asking them to buy something from you. And he says that if he could, he would have called the book jab, 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 like 25 times and then right hook, but he couldn't because of the title of a book, and that would be ridiculous. But that is sort of the proportion of how much free content you give out versus how much you're asking for something in return. And I think given these days, the way to, hashtag make money online is to build an audience first and then worry about monetizing it later. And you build an audience by teaching. Like, I'm not an entertainment YouTube channel. I'm not an entertainer, but I think I'm a reasonable teacher. And so the more that I can share freely for free, the more people are going to know, like, and trust me as a person. And then when I release a Skillshare class and be like, hey guys, sign up to my Skillshare class, suddenly a few thousand people will sign up to my Skillshare class, and that'll, pay the bills that month or something like that. So there's the more sort of altruistic route of I enjoy teaching, and then there's the more selfish route of teaching is the way to get an audience, and then getting an audience is the way to monetize it to make money further down the line.
Have you come across Dave Ramsey before? He's kind of like a finance guru.
I haven't seen much of his stuff. I've heard of him. What's his shtick?
His spiel is really good actually, because I hate kind of these like finance guru style
Yeah.
situations, but he was one who people were preaching to me about him for a long time, and then I finally listened to something, and I watched his YouTube. I didn't read his book. His book's called something like the Total Money Makeover. But I watched, a lot of these authors, they do a presentation explaining the book, and so I watched that on YouTube. It's called like Dave Ramsey Total Money Makeover. Oh no, it's called Dave Ramsey baby steps, and he talks about the steps on. He talks about how most people in society have the same financial issues because of how, and so he wants to change the psychology of how we think with our money. So essentially, stuff like, one of the stuff that he says is, our grandparents when they were younger, if they wanted a sofa and they didn't have the cash for the sofa, they wouldn't buy the sofa. For us, everything is available on interest-free finance, and so even though we don't have money and we can't afford it, our credit cards can. And so he basically is trying to train the young generation to have the financial mindset of the older generation, which is stuff like never going for finances, clearing your debts as soon as possible, having an emergency fund. And I was just intrigued. I wasn't advising him to you. I'm sure that you're very organized with your finances, but I was intrigued to know if he's someone that you've come across or benefited from, because it benefited me a lot with regards to kind of understanding that the idea of every pound should have a label on it. So you shouldn't have £1 in your bank account that doesn't have a label on it and isn't for something. And Ramit Sethi in his it relates a lot to what Ramit Sethi says in his book, I Will Teach You to Be Rich, which I didn't love, to be honest. But he says that if someone gives you £10,000 today, you should. Most people will say, if I said to you, Ali, here's £10,000, and what are you going to do with it? Most people will say, oh, I'm going to buy this, I'm going to go on a holiday, I'm going to do this. But he said, what you should say is, thanks, that's now going to fall into my system. And it just falls perfectly into your financial system that, okay, I have an emergency fund here and this is going here. And so, and he says when he gets money, it just goes straight into his system. And so I think if anybody who is listening doesn't have a base level system, because it's quite beginner Dave Ramsey system, if they don't have a base level system, that's kind of a really good place to go. Have you, do you do many videos talking about financial organization?
No, not really. It's an area I want to get I want to get more into. I think kind of growing up, I very much had that sort of the old person's mindset about this, just because it just the concept of using a credit card was not a thing in our life. It was like, you would get money on your birthday, you get money on Eid. And then I started tutoring at Kumon, so I got some money through that. And it was like, well, you want to buy something? All right, you've got the money that you've got from your ED and things like that. It wasn't a case of, I want this PS4, I want this PS2, PS3, therefore I'm going to buy it with a credit card. But I think I was quite fortunate in that when I got to university, and because I discovered Tim Ferriss at the right time, around about age 17, 18, immediately I sort of went into money-making mode. And alhamdulillah, I managed to sort of make enough money at university that I didn't really have to think too hard about personal finances, at least in terms of budgeting and things like that. And so for me, the people that I came across were Mr. Money Mustache and like Jay Collins and like the FIRE movement, the financial independence, retire early people who would advocate putting all your money in, or putting large chunks of your money in stock market index funds. And so from 2015, I've just been funneling all my spare cash into the S&P 500. And so for me, the answer to what would you do with 10 grand is, oh, great, I'll put it in the S&P 500. Like, I don't even have to think about it. But sort of, I think there's a lot of education to be had for people about personal finances and about things like the power of compounding and the power of what makes a good investment. Why is a car not an investment? It's actually a liability. Arguably, this whole buy versus rent debate, do you buy a house? Do you rent a house? It's not as simple as it seems. Our Asian parents are very keen to say that, renting is throwing money down the drain, and beta, you have to get in the property ladder as soon as possible. But, there are some circumstances in which that's not strictly true. So that's an area that I want to start exploring a little bit more, but I haven't done much of it.
Amazing. Ali, listen, I don't want to take up more of your time. I really, really appreciate it. I thank you so much for extending your time with us as well. I've gained so much and learned so much from you in just that last hour. I think that I often like to view my podcast episodes with people as like me, as like almost like a therapy session that I'm having with a person, or like a consultation. And I think this has very much so been that. So I really appreciate you giving that time to me, man. And I really hope for the best for you. And I pray that you have kind of barakah in everything that you do in your both in hashtag saving lives and as well in your online businesses. I really appreciate your time, man. Thank you so much.
Brilliant. Thank you for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thank you, bro.